Senators decided to introduce legislation today. Obviously, you've got to believe there's urgency to protect the special counsel Mueller right now.
Well, first of all, I want to make clear, I introduced this legislation with Lindsey Graham last year. We had a hearing about this legislation already. So there's been a lot of movement on the legislation, but yes, you're right, Anderson. There seems to be a renewed sense of urgency and vigor to move this forward. And I'm hopeful that we are going to get this into our committee and out of our committee, and God willing, perhaps even to the Senate floor for a vote.
We obviously learned today that during the FBI raid on Michael Cohen's home, the office, the hotel, the FBI saw communications between then candidate Trump and Cohen about that Access Hollywood tape. I'm wondering what you make of that, and does the president's reaction to that raid add to the concerns about Mueller?
Yeah, well, first of all, we have a constitutional crisis in the making, should we ever have, between now and in the future in history, have a president who he himself or his associates are under investigation. In this case, we've seen his associates be indicted, have still retained the power to, without good cause, to fire or order the firing of a special counsel. And if we can't figure out a way to check that power, have an appropriate check and balance, we could really make for a serious constitutional crisis. So there's a lot going on with this investigation. I'm one of those folks that just thinks let Mueller do his work. I know there's a lot of speculation, but I think that you see a progression of work and a thorough investigation going on. But I just want to make sure, I think that we in Congress, I'm grateful that there's Republicans who are a very prudent, sensible, sobered piece of legislation, understand that we should just make sure that we avoid what we saw in the past, which was a Saturday Night Massacre type situation.
Well, I mean, you do have Republican co-sponsors on the bill, but CNN's reporting that most Republicans oppose it, including Mitch McConnell, also the Majority Whip John Cornyn, to say nothing, obviously, about even if it did pass, the likelihood of the president actually signing it.
Yeah, but we're seeing circumstances change daily. I think that one of the reasons why this bill is getting some momentum now and potentially will get a markup in the Judiciary Committee is because you're starting to see a president say things that are not only sort of threatening the process, but seemingly potentially recklessly pushing us towards a constitutional crisis, which is something that Republicans and Democrats want to avoid.
If the president did fire, say, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, would that, in your opinion, constitute a constitutional crisis?
I think if he fired Rosenstein, you've heard the words of Republicans themselves say very dramatic things about what that would mean for Donald Trump's presidency. But again, if he fired Rosenstein and installed somebody who could then order to fire Mueller, when you've seen what's going on, you've seen indictments, you saw one person being sentenced who pled guilty, for him to interrupt an investigation like that, I think that you would bring about a moment in our country where you would really have a crisis in our nation.
This tweet by the president this morning saying that much of the bad blood with Russia is caused by what he said is the fake and corrupt Russia investigation headed by Democrat loyalists. Does that make any sense to you at all? I mean, the idea that, first of all, the majority of people here we're talking about are Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that really frustrates me is, we've seen an investigation led by a Republican around an issue that we all have to keep reminding ourselves, I hope, that this is something about the safety, the security, and the strength of our democracy. Our Eastern European allies, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Ukraine, all understand, as well as other European nations, that we are under a hybrid war by Russia. When Putin is not met by power, when he's not shown American force pushing him back, he will only be emboldened in what he's trying to do to our democracy. And it's not just our election systems, it's critical infrastructure. We are in a cyber contest with the Russians who are on an onslaught. To have a president of the United States not appreciate this, not recognize the danger and the threat, and be doing things that are, at the very least, trying to create an atmosphere that undermines an ongoing investigation. This is very problematic, and I think it's, in many ways, this is malpractice on a president who should first concern should be protecting the American people.